I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Washington Governor Jay Inslee. Governor, thank you so much for joining me today.
You bet. Beautiful day out.
It is a beautiful day out. I'm on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast. From sea to shining sea, it is a good day. And you are hosting APEC's third senior officials meetings later this summer. So my first question for you is, what do you wish to come out of these meetings?
Well, there's so much trade between my state. We have $110 billion of trade, $45 billion of exports out of our ports in the state of Washington. So this is very important to my state and obviously to the nation. And it touches the fabric of everything we do from, aviation to software to pharmaceuticals to certainly agriculture. So it's sort of all encompassing. I guess in my standpoint, I would think the one thing that I would be most excited about is if we come away with as much consensus as we can about how we're going to build a clean energy economy across the Pacific. We have tremendous growth going on in clean energy jobs in my state, and we want to continue to build those as rapidly as possible. We know climate change is eating us alive if we don't, and we want to do that integrates our economies in a way that helps everyone both prosper and defeat climate change. And I think finding a way to do that is one of the more important things for all economies today across the world. Today I was just reading an article about how the temperatures are becoming uninhabitable in parts of Asia. And at the same time, we have such tremendous growth. I was at the Paris Air Show last week and talked to some Washington companies that are developing whole new fuels that are clean and non-polluting. It's an exciting time on both sides of the Pacific.
Where do you think the consensus is right now then on a clean energy economy? Are we figuratively worlds apart? Do you see us moving closer together? Where do we stand?
Well, I think there's several things we've had success on. One, technological innovation is so rapid right now. The price of these technologies is coming down dramatically. Solar has come down 80%. Because of innovations on both sides of the Pacific. But we need to accelerate that. We need to find a way that economies can be in sync in our anti-carbon pollution efforts. If the more we work together on this, the more equitable it will be on all sides of the Pacific, the more effective it will be. And the larger your anti-carbon pollution efforts are, the more successful they are. So right now we have a very effective, probably leading the nation in our climate change policies in the United States. It's one of the reasons our economy is growing so fast. But the more that we sync it up with other areas, we're syncing up with California and Quebec in the near future, we hope. But we'd like to sync up our efforts internationally as well. So when you think about both the prospects for economic growth and the imperative to prevent climate change from destroying our homes as we know them, syncing up our efforts, making them as ambitious as possible and as coordinated as possible, I hope that this gets a really good discussion starting in Washington in a month or so.
Syncing up these efforts sounds like a really lofty goal, but I do want to take a step back here and really look at the broader picture. So how would you currently characterize the relationship between the U.S. and the Asian Pacific region?
Like every human relationship, beneficial and still having occasional tension. And we want that creative tension to create as much consensus as possible. These relationships are always kind of two-sided. We want to compete. Competition is healthy. It drives more efficiency and growth. But we want to cooperate where each area does what they do best, the most. And so it's kind of an unusual kind of relationship, but one that has worked in the past. Certainly my state has prospered. It's one of the reasons we have been so productive and our economy has been so robust and continues to experience really great job creation because we have found that this trade relationship is productive. You grow when you can sell your products in more and more markets. And we have done that across the Pacific and in a host of industries, from aerospace to aviation to software, you name it. That's how you grow, is by having more places to sell your product. So we look at trade in a positive way ultimately, but we still think of it from a competitive standpoint. So it's one of those interesting types of relationships. But if you do it right, your economy can grow, and that's what we're doing.
Before we look even more into the future, I do want to take a stroll down memory lane, if you will, and talk about your state specifically. Washington did host an APEC event on Blake Island back in 1993. So what has changed within the past 3 decades between then and now?
Well, so much. I mean, technologically, I wasn't carrying I had a rotary phone when I went to Blake Harbor on my senior cruise in 1969. When the group met in 93, I didn't have a cell phone. And the technological change cannot be overstated. Obviously, the growth of some of our Pacific Island or our Pacific trading partners has been, both in population and economic growth, has been incredible. India is now the most populous country and the largest democracy in the world. China's had spectacular economic growth. So we're not as dominant because we're not as singular. Back in, like I said, when I went to Blake Harbor in 1969, my senior cruise, we were still one of the only healthy economies in the world. Now we're one of many. So that has changed. But what has not changed is our tremendous innovative capabilities, our technological creativity that still remains unsurpassed. And we need to find a way to maximize that opportunity, maximize the number of markets we can build in, and make sure we have supply chains that are healthy, that have domestic content as well. So things have changed and things have remained the same.
I do want to pick apart something you just said. You said we're not as dominant because we're not as singular. When Americans hear that, what should they feel? Should they feel scared about that?
Well, I think we should feel confident. And I'll tell you why. I do think we have the most innovative ecosystem for entrepreneurship, I believe, in the United States, in my state, and nationally as well. We still are such a beacon of innovation. Young people still around the world want to come to the United States to pursue their technological and entrepreneurial dreams. I've seen that all over. I was just talking to these folks making an aviation fuel the other day, and see the spark in their eyes when they're creating a whole new business to be able to fuel airplanes with non-polluting jet fuel. And kids come from all around the world because they understand this is the best place to build that kind of dream. And I don't think that has been diminished in the United States and in my state particularly. And we ought to treasure that. We ought to be proud of it. And we ought to understand that, this is not the only place that has smart people in the world, and that competition can be healthy at the same time. So I feel, yes, there's more competition, but there's more productivity going on right now. Listen, I can't turn over a rock in my state without seeing a new business that's creating a new technology. I think one of the visits they might have when some of these folks are with some of our advanced battery companies in our state. We have 2 silicon anode battery companies that are really leading the world. They're Moses Lake, Washington, relatively small town, 130 miles east of Seattle. We have a fuel cell, the largest truck in the world is powered by a hydrogen fuel cell built in Seattle, Washington. We're the largest manufacturer of polysilicate solar cells in the Western Hemisphere. So we have a lot to be proud of, and we ought to keep that in our thoughts.